Today we're talking about the actual cost of the digital nomad lifestyle, because you probably calculated some expenses like rent, food and maybe even some activities. But what about the hidden costs that nobody warns you about? Like seriously, I wish someone had warned me about some of these costs. Because you might already have a pretty good idea of what cost and expense you can expect as a new or aspiring digital nomad. But which costs are actually true and how do you make sure that you're prepared? After spending the last year as a full-time digital nomad, I've compiled all of my expenses, expected and unexpected. And today I'm breaking it all down so you know what you can actually expect when living life as a digital nomad. First up, let's talk about housing, because rent is definitely going to be your biggest fixed cost as a digital nomad. However, it also largely depends on where you're traveling to. For example, a studio in Chiang Mai can go from $300 per month. However, an apartment in Athens, Greece can easily be $1,000 per month. If you're staying in Southeast Asia, with exception of major big cities like Bangkok or Kuala Lumpur, you'll find that you can easily find apartments starting from $300 to $700. While in Europe or Latin America, expect to pay around $600 to maybe even $1,500 per month for an apartment. Picking the right location and the right housing can make a huge difference to if you're worrying every month about your expenses or if you're living nice and comfortable. In the end, saving on rent means more money for experiences, food, and maybe even investing in your workplace. But even if you budgeted for rent, there's one cost that most people completely forget to plan for: the hidden cost. And this can sneak up on you real fast. Number 2, the hidden costs. Because everyone talks about obvious costs like rent, but what about those hidden costs that no one warns you about? Think of ATM withdrawal charges, visas maybe, or even unexpected costs like emergency flight tickets. And let's not even forget about insurance costs like travel insurance, which is just as important. To give you a personal example, I had some high unexpected costs when I needed to leave Vietnam earlier than expected. This resulted in needing to find a double accommodation because I needed a new one, to new flight tickets, new transportation, and everything that you can imagine when traveling to your next destination. And in the end, this all added up to quite a few dollars. These hidden costs might seem small, but in the course over a year, these costs can really make a difference in your budget. And of course, living life as a digital nomad is not just all about work. So what about the fun aspect of this lifestyle? Number 3, food and entertainment, because one of the biggest perks of living a digital nomad lifestyle is experiencing new activities and new food in all different countries. But what about the cost? Well, street food in Asia can easily start with $1 to $3 per meal. Wherever dining out in places like Europe, it can easily start with $10 to $20 per meal, which is a huge difference if you ask me. If you love going to coffee shops or maybe getting some snacks in the evening, I would highly suggest to also calculate this into your budget, because this can easily count up to $30 to $100 per month. And what about going out? Well, a cocktail in Bangkok can start around $10, wherever a cocktail in Medellin, Colombia can start around $8, wherever a cocktail in Athens can easily start at $14. And a big tip, because if you're a beer lover, then I would highly suggest to come to Vietnam, because Vietnam has some of the lowest beer prices, starting at just $2. And don't worry if you think this is all about going out, because there are also lots of fun activities, and I would always count around $10 to $20 per activity, with some examples of course with going on big trips like boat trips that can easily start with $50. Personally, I experienced that this segment of monthly cost changes the most, because it really depends on the location where I'm staying. For example, here in Bangkok, I spent way more on food and activities than I did previously in Phnom Penh, Cambodia. In the end, your food and entertainment budget really depends your lifestyle. So do you want to go all in, or do you want to keep it basic and laid back? But what about work? Let's talk about what you need to spend to stay productive as a digital nomad. Up next, number 4, co-working and internet. A fast and reliable internet connection is a non-negotiable for any digital nomad. If you're someone who likes to work from co-working spaces, I would count on around $50 to $300 per month, all depending on the city where you're staying. Something else important is a local or online eSIM, and I would count on around $10 to $30 per month. And by the way, just a quick tip, I've put 2 links down below in the description that you can check out for either an eSIM option or another great health insurance options, which will both make your life as a digital nomad way easier. So good Wi-Fi equals good work. If your connection is unstable, your remote job or business could really suffer. That's why I always like to double check my accommodation before booking, because a good home base is key. Now, before we wrap this up, let's break down the cost and see what you actually need to live this lifestyle. And with that, it's time for the final breakdown. And just a quick reminder before I'm going to spill all of my personal details of my expenses of the last 8 months of living life as a digital nomad. I want to say that these costs are of course based on my personal experience, on my personal lifestyle, and in the last few months that I've also stayed only in Southeast Asia. So that's a good thing to keep in mind. So after combining all of my data, this is a realistic breakdown of what I needed to live life as a digital nomad. Starting off with accommodation average, and that was around $820 per month. Then next is the food and entertainment average, and that comes down to around $600 per month. Co-working and internet is a lower cost for me, and that was just at $25 per month. Then next, transportation, and that is around $100 per month. And of course those very important hidden costs, and that all comes down to $465 per month, which is pretty high if you ask me, so I really don't understand why nobody talks about those hidden costs. In the end, it brings the total average of living in Southeast Asia to around $2,010 per month. So yeah, that is what you can expect of the expenses while living as a digital nomad. So what do you think? Would you live on this kind of budget? In the end, that is what I need to live as a digital nomad in the last few months here in Southeast Asia. And if you're now wondering like, okay, so those are the expenses, but which destination do I actually need to go there and which are highly recommended? Well, I talk about the 5 best destinations for digital nomad in that video, so definitely check it out next.